Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about something a little different than usual. If you're coming to this video and you haven't been on my channel before, usually I talk about electronics, but today we're going to be talking about a YouTube video. I'm responding to a video that I have problems with. So if you couldn't get it from the title, this is about a PragerU video, as the title will most likely say something along the lines of Dear PragerU. The video is specifically called Eye for an Eye. It's got some subtitle, but I'll link that in the description if you guys want to see that first. I won't get too much into the details of what PragerU is. It's founded by a man named Dennis Prager, and it stands for Prager University. I think they have a physical location, but it's like one of those places at the school that uploads videos, like snippets of what they offer at their university, I think. I don't really fully know, but they have a lot of videos. They have over 1 million subscribers, and their videos, most of them hit the millions in their views. So they are pretty popular. A lot of my conservative friends, I live in Texas, so most of my Facebook friends are conservative, and a lot of them share these videos almost the instant they come out and really love the content. That being said, I've been able to watch many of these videos because people share them. My political beliefs are vastly different than my friends and these videos. And the thing that really gets to me with these videos is they never really share facts. And if they do, they're very skewed. They paint large pictures of people they don't like and make it hard for you to pin down one specific thing or negative comment they have. It's really interesting. So this video that they made, an Eye for an Eye video, I watched it when it came out just a couple days ago by the time I'm uploading this video, and it got to me that, like, this is the epitome of what I don't like about them. So I made a response, I've typed it up, and I'm going to be reading from it. I'll have a little comments about different things in the video. If you don't want to watch it, don't worry, I'll be telling you what they said and then comparing to what I'm going to say. But yeah, first off, I want to start off, I have no ill will towards these people or conservatives in general. I just like to have civil discourse and a factual debate with somebody. When someone starts stating things like atheists, that's what they do at the beginning of this video. They just say atheist blank, and like they just start attacking immediately. I'm like, that's not how you win people over. I'm sure that's how you keep people on your side, because people automatically have been trained to be like, oh, atheists are bad people because they don't trust the God. That's not a good way of looking at the world, you know? You got to be more open. Anyways, we'll get into all that as the video progresses, but let's start off. Dennis Prager usually comes very rarely to talk about the videos. He usually gets guests, various people to come talk about the topic of the day. But this one is actually being done by Dennis Prager himself. And he starts it off with saying, even atheists admit that the Bible is the most influential book for creating Western civilization. Okay, I've said this quote to two people today, and one person was like, is it though? And the other person agreed. So this is one of those things that is not, you can argue that. You could argue that Western civilization is very religious, and that the printing press, Gutenberg, everything involved in the West definitely was pushed forward with the idea of religion being at the forefront. Yes, you could argue that we can go with that. I don't have a huge problem, and I don't think arguing over semantics is super important. Unlike PragerU, they love arguing over the finer details of things. But I don't have a personal problem saying that is important. I don't know what good it does to say that it's important, but they really like that, so I'll let them have that one. Then he talks about that Western civilization is amazing, and that it created societies rooted in democracy, individual liberty, stuff like that. And the whole video is not about those specific things, but they like to throw in the other things in there to like say, oh, you don't disagree with this, you know? Western civilization gave you this, this, and this. Let's just debate this real fast. Sorry, someone's outside my window. Debating this real fast. That's not true. So Western civilization had the Greek philosophers, Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, yes. And that is where democracy, as we define it today, had a large impact. But in the Code of Hammurabi and the Epic of Gilgamesh, two things that were written long before the Bible was actually written. Yes, some argue, and I don't have a problem with this, that the Bible stories were all told until Moses wrote them down. But I'm talking about when it was actually written. So when Moses actually wrote it, if you want to go there, before Moses wrote it in Babylon with Hammurabi and all these things, just that's when their laws were put down, and those were very ancient forms of democracy, and they call those I had it primitive democracy. So and that is not involved in Western culture. Once again, also, India had been talking about democracy in various forms around the 4th and 6th century. So once again, not Western culture. Now, the only like for me, it's not important to argue the definitions and the fine details of things. Looking at history as a general thing is okay with me. But Prager, once again, they really like saying that Western culture, and there are many reasons for them doing that. I won't get into them, but the only reason I'm going point by point is not because I'm harping on these tiny things. I'm just with what they give me as the facts that they do. This is what I'm confronting. So, next, I thought it was interesting that while they talk about democracy and the other things, they show the Greek building and behind the slide that they show for this. And I found a quote from Aristotle that is talking about something that might disagree with how people like looking at Western history, I guess. Aristotle says, "It is thus clear that some are by nature free, so others are by nature slaves, and for these latter, the condition of slavery is both beneficial and just." So, yeah, Western culture, the Greeks had some good ideas, and obviously they had some ideas that aren't the greatest. Slavery, not that good of a thing, we've kind of established that. But, you have to admit that in the history of your culture and society, bad things have happened, good things have happened. Nothing is perfect. But this premise of this video is that Western culture is pretty much perfect. If you say anything's bad about it, you hate America. Real logical right there. Okay. And then then he ends it, this little section where he was talking about how democracy and all that stuff. Prager ends it by saying, "Only the West formalized these ideas and spread them." Once again, incorrect, but we'll move on to the next thing. He says, "Now the West is no longer being regarded as superior to any other." I don't know if there was ever a time in history where the West was regarded as superior, in the sense of that, maybe no, I really don't think so, honestly. You can argue that certain parts of the world thought that Western culture was superior, but I think everybody has thought that at points in history. All countries and the areas of land have been like, ours is the best, and there's no positivity of being the best. You want to work together. I think we've come that far in a society where it's like we work together with our cultures and societies to bring forth a better future, versus just saying Western culture is better, everyone else is not the greatest. So he then starts saying that people who are privileged and well-learned because of Western civilization are attacking it now. And he shows a bunch of people protesting with a weird mantra saying, like, "Hey ho, Western civilization must go." I was like, honestly, the only times I've heard Western civilization talked about is from PragerU and conservatives. I've never really heard any of my liberal friends or professors or anybody really. I've rarely heard someone say the words Western civilization in this context. So to say that people are protesting it, I don't know. It's actually details that people are protesting. You guys heard that? Details that they're protesting. It's like the whole Parkland shooting. They're just saying that these kids want to get rid of our guns. I'm like, no, there's specific weapons they want to get rid of. But once again, the news companies like to paint a broad painting, and they're like, this is everything they don't want. So everyone can get angry at the big thing when, like, no, it's really a practical small thing. But once again, if you make a big target, a lot more people get angry at it versus a small one. They're like, oh, that makes sense, So anyways, next Prager says, talking about the Bible again, "The Bible has not only become neglected, but reviled, regarded as foolish fairy tales at best, and as immoral works at worst." I personally, I grew up in a Christian household. My parents are Christian. Both sides of my family are very religious, but I have not really heard anyone say negative things about the Bible. If anything, my liberal friends, like I said, I don't like calling them my liberal friends, but whenever anybody does have negative things to say, it's not about the Bible, it's about Christians' interpretation of the Bible, or as a Christian being a bad person unrelated to their religion. They just look at them as a bad person. They're like, oh, they happen to be Christian. That doesn't be a specific thing about them, you know? Some people like to argue it's like, oh, that person murdered a bunch of people, they're a Muslim, you know? It's like, no, you just say that person murdered them, their religion was there, you know? It doesn't even, it's just another thing about them, you know? But once again, people they think that labels make it easier for judging people when it's really just a bad person, not the religion. But once again, Prager likes to say that they are being attacked because they're Christian, because the Bible's being attacked. Once again, I haven't heard anything negative about the Bible. People say it's a good moral guidebook, and if you follow it, you're going to be great. Those are people who don't believe in God, and they say that. So I have friends that have no problems with this, you know? So, all right. But the reason I mention this, though, is because he says right now people are regarding it as foolish fairy tales. I think it's funny because I found some quotes from the Founding Fathers that would say they personally disagreed with the Bible. Once again, I have no problems with the Bible as a whole. It's when Prager starts doing these things of saying that people are attacking it. The only reason I'm citing these Founding Fathers, I don't necessarily agree with them. The only reason I'm citing them is to show that Prager University really holds these Founding Fathers as like gods, pretty much. And a lot of conservatives are like, the Founding Fathers wouldn't have done this, you know? So showing that the Founding Fathers disagreed with modern conservatism and modern Christianity is me just showing them that's like, you can admit that people you look up to have flaws if within your own system, you know? So anyways, Thomas Jefferson said, religions are all alike, founded upon fables and mythologies. Thomas Jefferson said that. Once again, this is someone that you think is amazing and would support everything you do today, but probably has a very, very big disagreement on your main premise. Benjamin Franklin said, lighthouses are more helpful than churches. Great. Benjamin Franklin also said, I love this one, how many observe Christ's birthday, how few his precepts, which is him just saying pretty much people all celebrate Christmas, but they don't celebrate or follow his, you know, way of life. And that's a big problem I have with modern Christianity. We won't get into that, but once again, here's my favorite one. Thomas Paine said this one. And Thomas Paine, if you don't know, he's famous for the don't tread on us or me thing, the snake, the photo. That is the whole Tea Party's mantra, everything. This, I think, is really interesting. So for anyone who is hyper-religious and mix that in with your political beliefs and is conservative, then I think it's really interesting that Thomas Paine says this, and you might not like him anymore because some people don't like to accept that people that have done great things had weird beliefs. I'm not saying like murdering people, not like that. I'm just saying they disagreed politically, you know? So anyways, Thomas Paine said, whenever we read the obscene stories, the voluptuous debaucheries, the cruel and torturous executions, the unrelenting vindictiveness with which more than half the Bible is filled, it would be more consistent that we call it the word of a demon than the word of a god. It is a history of wickedness that has served to corrupt and brutalize humankind. Doesn't sound like he really liked it, and it sounds like, as Prager said, he sees it as an immoral work at worst, and some of the other Founding Fathers saw it as a foolish fairy tale at best. He's talking about millennials in that statement. He's talking about liberals, modern liberals in that statement, when really it applies to the Founding Fathers. Once again, everyone is bad, everyone is good. We all have flaws inherently in the way we exist. So to single out liberals and say they are the cause of all your problems and saying that everyone's attacking the Bible when that rarely happens, in fact, your statement applies more to the Founding Fathers, the people who you say give you the rights that you have. I think that's so interesting. Next up, he does this really weird thing. He says that he gets to the whole premise of the video. This video is only 5 minutes, and he gets to this finally. He says that that people give many moral objections to the Bible, and then he says there are all logical answers to those moral objections. I'm like, oh, okay, great. This will be interesting. I wonder what he's going to talk about. Like I said, people rarely talk about the Bible if they're not religious. Like, rarely. It's so uncommon. But he seems to feel that people attack the Bible a lot. And so I was like, all right, what's he going to talk about? Is he going to talk about gay marriage? People have a problem with the Bible's representation of gay marriage in the modern day church. Let's see what he does with that. No, he didn't pick anything like that. He picked out of nowhere something that I have never heard before. He started talking about how in the Old Testament there was a law that if your son was disobeying you, you could bring him before the city council, and if they thought that it was right that he was disobeying you, or they agreed with you that he was being bad, they would let him be stoned by the citizens. Then Prager goes on to say, this is a good thing because before this law, the parents could have just stoned him themselves, but now he's not owned by the parents anymore. He's owned by the city. This is progressive thinking. Okay, there's so many things in the Bible, so many things that they could have used as examples. Like if you're going to pick and choose things to fit your weird narrative, then totally. There are so many things you could easily do this with. The mixed fabric threading of the clothes, that had a logical reason back in the Bible. Not eating shellfish and certain things like that, that had a logical reason back in the Bible. They could have talked about those things and said like this is why they did that. But no, Prager picks the weirdest, most obscure verse to talk about it and then tries to justify stoning children. And then he says, but don't worry, there is no historical record of, them actually doing this. I'm pretty sure that literacy was like one guy out of 100, out of 200, out of 500 back then. So just because there's no record doesn't mean that they didn't stone people for this. So that's just weird. And once again, I'm not saying that there are other societies and cultures out there that didn't do horrible things like this. I am sure there are hundreds of groups of people and societies across the planet that have done just as horrible things, maybe even worse. But I just find it so weird that he picked this one thing and said it's actually a good thing because now the kids weren't owned by their parents and the city had to say whether they would do something about it. Really weird. Then we get to the title of this video, Eye for an Eye. Dennis Prager talks about the eye for an eye verse. And I haven't heard this verse in a while, but I'm pretty sure the reason he mentioned it is because a couple years ago when Donald Trump was running for president, he mentioned that was his favorite Bible verse, and I think that's why PragerU uses it. PragerU, by the way, loves Donald Trump. We won't get into that whole political section there, but they really like him. And anytime they're talking about jobs or gun control, they always use things that would support what Donald Trump says. So once again, they pick the eye for an eye verse and say how smart eye for an eye is, saying that it led to common sense, practical judgment. If someone runs over your foot with a carriage, then you can smash their foot with a bat. It's equal punishment. That's what he's talking about. Okay, yes, I suppose. I really, honestly, I'm not going to even attack the premise of that because it involves capital punishment and like crimes, and I don't like physical violence in general. So, I guess it's like if it's today's standards, if you shoot someone and they're not killed, you shoot their arm, you can now track them down, hold them still, and shoot their arm and not go to jail because you're like, hey, eye for an eye, Okay, once again, we're talking about ancient times. Yes. The reason I mention all these things is because Jesus, once we're talking about the Bible again, Jesus actually said in Matthew 5, verse 38, he said, you have heard that it is said, eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other cheek also. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2 miles. Give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you. This is a totally different response than what Prager was using in their video. Rarely do PragerU videos put forward an image of peace. It's almost always aggression type things. So I think it's really interesting that he does not mention any verses in the Bible that involve okay. The real thing is like he mentioned eye for an eye, right? He could have easily said, yes, this is, people complain about this, but this is outdated because in the Bible itself, Jesus comes along and says that's not how we're to live our lives. But he doesn't do that. He just says how inflicting violence on another person is a great form of punishment that is a good standard, so you just don't overbeat somebody for a simple crime, you know what I mean? I think that's so strange, it's not strange because I understand where they're coming from. They're coming from a sense of, violence is okay. The whole Jesus peaceful thing, that doesn't really fit with conservatism. That doesn't fit with modern politics. But we still want the Bible believers to come to us, so we need to find a way to fit the Bible into this. Even though that eye for an eye verse that he talks about is outdated. Not just in the sense of outdated with modern politics, but outdated within the Bible itself. Because Jesus came along and was like, hey, if someone hits you, let them keep hitting you. Don't fight back. Just let it happen. Go away. Don't fight back. Just, it's okay, you know? Jesus is the opposite of modern conservatism. And if you just read anything Jesus said, Jesus never talks about gay marriage. Jesus talks about how you should help the poor and pay your taxes. And just, you know, he's like such a goody two shoes. And he's so nice and kind that it really goes against with what modern conservative politics really is in general. My favorite thing is if someone disagrees with Jesus, like when literally he gets stoned and people disagree with him and say, hey, we don't want you preaching our town, Jesus just left. He's like, all right, I'm going to leave. Just walked away. That just seems like the opposite of our current presidency. If someone disagrees with Donald Trump, what does he do? He just yells and calls names to everybody. And it seems to be that all the right is doing that now. Honestly, politics in general is doing this, but I'm saying the right because they're trying to say that they're the biblical, more religious side of politics, which if you just take what Jesus says in the New Testament, which really replaces all the Old Testament violence and everything that happened there, if you live your life that way, wow, the world will be a great place. Just because he has such a positive message. But let's just take an eye for an eye and stoning kids who disagree. That's such a bizarre thing. And it's funny, I was kind of wondering where this came out of because nothing really in politics is focused on something like this, attacking the Bible. I was curious. He says, if you want to find out more answers, buy my book. I was like, oh, there we go. This is all about his new book that's coming out. I get it. That makes so much sense. Oh my gosh. I hope you guys enjoyed this video as much as you can enjoy this. Once again, Dennis Prager, PragerU. Come on, guys. If you just have facts, if you just, see, it's interesting. America was not found by Christopher Columbus. Native Americans were tortured and killed by numerous everybody who came to America just attacked Native Americans, you know. White people have done bad things in history, you know. We owned slaves at some point, you know. I mean, just if you can admit bad things happened in American history, that doesn't make America bad. It just makes you realize that you will not recreate those mistakes the more you realize. When you try to put these things in history books, that doesn't erase the goodness of America. It just represents America in a very, we understand what we did wrong light. If you say nothing but good things in your history books, that's propaganda. That's North Korea. That's the people you guys don't like. There are countries where the United States is not even on their map because the propaganda. They don't like what the United States has to say about things. Do you want to be that way? Do you guys want to have Mexico off the map because you're like, oh no, bad people come from Mexico? That's not how you work. Admit your faults, then become better for it. You're the bigger person if you can admit your own faults. But if you just say, no, we're perfect, anybody who attacks us is an idiot, then you get nowhere. Actually, you'll probably dig yourself into a trench and make your life worse. Because when you can't admit that you are wrong, then what's the point of existing? Thank you so much again, guys, for listening. Check out the PragerU video in the description. I normally don't do videos like this. Hopefully, if you guys like it and you want to see more of these types of response videos, let me know. I have a few people who actually graduated seminary school, and I have a few of my professor friends who are very, very cool and doctors and stuff in their fields. So if you guys have any questions and want me to ask them, I would love to put that into something, one of these videos, like have them respond through me, of course, through one of these things. I think that'd be pretty cool. Also, if you've made it this far and you're a PragerU fan or you're a conservative and you think I unjustly attacked you, please let me know where. Please just don't dislike this video because of these things. Please don't tell me I'm America hating and, I'm a hippie, or just, come on. Let's have a real civil discourse. I don't think I called names this entire video. Any complaint I had, I gave a valid, or at least for personally valid reason. So come on, guys. Let's just have a rational discussion about this. Anybody else? Please put a comment. Oh, same goes for the liberals. If I have any friends or any commenters that are liberal and you see this, please don't start calling names. Don't trash Donald Trump. Don't call the Republicans lame or call them bad names. Just give facts. Have an honest discussion. Name calling, that's not what the world's about. Well, it shouldn't be, anyways. Thank you so much for listening and watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.